All right. Hello. Welcome to the Artificially Intelligent Podcast, where me, Nathan Timmel, a white, hunky, cracker-ass American comedian, speaks with his best friend, a black person of color musician, Barrett Antar Goodwin.
Yeah.
Really quick, I want to say this to anybody that happens to watch us on Instagram. Stop. Instagram just sucks for so many reasons. One being they have the time limit. So if you do watch us, you always get to the end and it says, hey, guess what? There's more on YouTube. But they just made a change recently that I didn't realize until after I posted it. Up until last week, as you filmed, you had the cinematic like YouTube version of video on Instagram, but now they decided to go with the box version. So last week when we had a guest on, you saw half of my face, half of your face, and because she was in the center, you saw her. So yeah, whenever we have three people, Instagram just sucks. I don't know why they decided to go to square video, maybe because people are stupid and they all hold their phone upright instead of turning it sideways. And they're just like, well, you can't teach people not to be stupid. We might as well be stupid along with them. I have no idea, but it's sad. So I will continue to post on Instagram, even though I don't know why.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm going to change my view here.
All right.
Hold on. All right. How are you, sir?
I am well. How is you? We are speaking on Wednesday, November 3rd, and hopefully I'll get this put together and put out this morning because I have thoughts.
Oh, all right.
I have so many thoughts that I don't want to start talking because I will not stop.
Go for it. What you got?
Well,
let me get my drink.
Yesterday was, for reasons no one can understand, another election. There was another election yesterday when there shouldn't have been because there are just too many elections, I am thinking. So my first thought is my wife and I voted. We voted for mayor of our town, and we have about 19 to 20,000 people in my little town. The mayor, the person that won, is the guy we voted for because Lydia knows him, because when you live in a small town, you know everybody. He won because he got 1,500 votes. The guy that lost got 500 votes. So 19,000 people, 2,000 people voted because nobody knows there's a fucking election, because the only time we vote is during presidential. So one thought is, why the fuck do we have all these elections? We should just have a national holiday. Everybody votes on this day, and then you don't have to fucking think about it again. We just have this nonstop money cycle of Democrats versus Republicans, and people are stupid, so they fluctuate. Virginia goes to the Democrats for Biden by 10 points, and everybody's like, ooh, Virginia's turning blue, or at least it's purple. They lost the governor's race last night. And I want to talk about that too. So now they're like, ooh, are the Democrats going to lose in 2022? Of course they are. That's one, people are stupid. They fluctuate. And two, Democrats are horrible at messaging and governing, because we had this idea of a $3 trillion spending deal that's now below $2 trillion, and Manchin and Sinema are still not voting for it. I mean, it's the oldest phrase in the world. Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love. When Democrats get in power, they do this. They infight. I want this. No, I want this. Republicans just fucking vote party line when they're in office. That's all they do. And, well, except for when McCain thumbs down to Trump. That was funny. But all right, I should start becoming focused. Here's how the Democrats lost Virginia. Critical race theory became a thing, and Republicans ran on that. And there's a clip that went viral recently. I don't know if you saw it. It was fantastic. It summed up the Virginia race. It was an old dude, grumpy dude. Reporter puts a microphone in his, says, hey, what's the most important thing in this race to you? He goes, critical race theory. We need to go back to teaching kids what they need to learn, not racism. It's like, okay, what don't you like about critical race theory? I don't really know what it is, but I don't like it. I just know a little bit about it. Okay, what little do you know about it? Well, I don't really know what it is at all, but I don't like it, and we shouldn't be. As that was it in a nutshell. Like, Republicans got the messaging out. And the flip side of that is the Democrat that was in charge, that lost the race, said the stupidest fucking thing in the world. And all the Republicans had to do was run on it. He was pandering to the teachers union, and he said, we're not going to let parents come into our schools and tell us what to teach our kids. You play that a bunch of times, every parent's voting against him. It's as I should be in charge of all political races where I just hit candidates in the face and say, shut the fuck up. That would be my message. So final thought then, and then I'll turn it over to you because you can change my mind on this or, you know, explain to me why I'm wrong, which is usually what happens here. Why do we teach history in school? Why don't we just teach math and science and a little bit of English? We are stupid. We never learn from history. We repeat the same mistakes over and over and over. And I'll use the biggest example, the pandemic. When the pandemic began, I read so many stories about 1918 and the Spanish flu and how certain cities did it correct and certain cities did it wrong, and no one gave a fuck. You still had Ron DeSantis and Abbott going, fuck it, let's just let everybody die. And you had Democrats, you had Newsom saying, kill the economy, shut everything down. We don't learn. We look at history and go, oh, that was interesting, but that happened last year. It's completely not going to happen this year. And so why even teach it? Why give Republicans the opportunity to complain about critical race theory or history or, you know, America is the best ever, you know, why not say, fuck it. Let's teach math. Let's teach science. Let's make our kids smart. I didn't learn history when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I learned the slaves were a happy people because they needed their white masters to take care of them. Got to college, I learned different, or I knew different just from living. I turned out, you know, okay. I don't fuck it. Let's just give up on history. That's my opening rant is all of that is Democrats are stupid. They infight. They're going to lose. They always lose. They shoot themselves in the foot. Why give Republicans the opportunity to attack on all fronts? Because they do it so well.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Not like in a bad way. Like there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. That's what I said. My mind has been swimming ever since I saw the Virginia numbers come in. I'm like, and of course, by the way, this is my favorite statistic. I have it in front of me. Let me read it. White women college grads in 2020, 58% went for Biden, 41% for Trump. In 2021, 62% went for the Democrat, 38% for the Republican. White women, non-college graduates, 2020, 56% for Trump, 2021, 75% for the Republican. White women that don't go to college, why are you so fucking stupid? What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, why are you so easily duped? You are the women who I'm supposed to feel sorry for when, oh my God, she ended up in an abusive relationship and she couldn't get out. No, the warning signs were all there. You're just fucking stupid. You're in an abusive relationship with the Republican Party. Knock it the fuck off.
Oh boy. Swinging for the fences today. This is what happens when we do morning podcasts. You've had your kachava. What do you?
I went from my morning walk, took the kids to school, had a poop, and sat down to shit out my mouth. I already got the rest out. Now all the shit's coming out my mouth.
I heard the funniest saying today, and then I'll get to what you said. A woman said somebody was giving this black woman some shit. And she said, well, if you gonna come out the side of your neck, I'm gonna come out the crack of my ass and I'm gonna shit all over your day. And I thought that was hilarious. I'm like,
I would not have thought of that one.
I was like, I'm gonna use that. Anyway, I think that it is frightening to me that something like critical race theory can even be this divisive, right? Yeah. Like again, when we say, you know, we're trying to protect our national interests and trying to do this and what the Russians are going to do and blah, 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 right? Whether the Russians did this or didn't do this, who the fuck knows? I surely know I don't know. right? But what I do know is that critical race theory, on the whole, from what I understand, is something that they teach in law school about the ways in which the embedded kind of what we call structural racism, right? Like how that has shaped the way laws and the interpretation of laws get applied to different groups of people. I think that's pretty reasonable, right? I don't think that's an unreasonable thing because I think we have a caste system in this country that is based on race. But we have other caste systems too that we completely know are real, but we don't think about, right? Like if you were going out for a tech job today and you were going up against a
Indian or an Asian.
I was going to say nerdy 22-year-old because I was going to use age here, right? Not race, but that too, right? But if you were going up against kind of like a nerdy 22-year-old, even without reading your resumes, they would lean toward the younger person because they would assume you don't actually know what you're doing in the tech world in the same way that younger people do, right? And we don't think that that's weird, right? We don't think that that's caste, right? We don't think we are perfectly aware of that.
That's
Right?
just
Like,
ageism, isn't it? Is that caste or is
right.
that ageism?
It's ageism, but it functions in the same way in which people are taking something. It's literally, I would call it more of a casty type thing in the sense that it is so ubiquitous that we don't even notice it. Like we don't notice that we do it because it's not conscious. They would actually read the two resumes, and if you were equally educated, they would go with the younger person, most likely in
Yeah.
the tech world, right? And maybe I don't know tech as much as I think I do, but you take it out of tech, and the example still holds. Like we can find many places where, and I'm sure we can find places where age is considered
I was just
a
gonna say
bonus,
you could flip it, and
right?
if there's someone that has
Absolutely.
for a CEO positions opens up, they're not going to go with the 22-year-old. They're
Absolutely.
going to go with the old white guy.
Absolutely. Even if the 22-year-old is theoretically more qualified,
Yeah.
right? And the same thing is true in when it comes to race and all these other things. That's what critical race theory is actually, I think, trying to talk about is the ways in which drug laws disproportionately affect people and that is actually a problem, right?
Yeah.
That and things like that.
Well,
The
here's my
idea
then
that
that goes to my question is
Mhm.
it, fuck it. Keep teaching it in law school. Make it a college level course. Just get sure you're going to end up with
I
the kids that
mean,
end up in college and like, holy shit, I never knew this. We have that anyway. I mean, that goes
but
on today.
but I think that's the problem people are trying to combat. And I don't think that critical race theory is something that the Republicans brought up.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
not something that like they played everybody. Like that's
Right.
what I mean, right?
And the Democrats
Like
were such fucking pussies that they sat there and took
right,
it.
right. I mean, because racism is such a problem in this country that it can actually be used by foreign agents to disrupt the country. That to me is a real problem, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can literally win an election by just injecting race into it, and it doesn't matter who does it, right? It doesn't matter what side does it. If by injecting race into something, you can absolutely affect the outcome where otherwise rational people will make really ridiculous decisions, that's a problem. You know what I
To be
mean?
fair, is
Like
the
that's a
fuck face
problem.
in the video rational though? Because he doesn't seem rational. The
What?
guy I
What do you
talked
say?
about, and what don't you like about critical race theory? Well, I don't
Well,
really know what it is. I just know I don't
because,
like it.
but I mean, but this is what I mean when we talk about caste. We're not talking about racism here. That guy's not a racist, probably. Like he doesn't run around saying nigger and he doesn't burn crosses. And he's probably not part of the KKK. He might have a black coworker and he might be friends with that person, right? Caste is really about these assumptions that go unquestioned, right? He doesn't question his assumption that what they're teaching is wrong,
Right.
right? He
Yeah.
never questions whether or not his feeling is based in fact, because it's so ingrained that it's automatically assumed to be right. And this is, again, this is not what I'll answer your question in a second,
No,
but
go keep
like,
going.
but you know, when we talk about teaching Black history, we teach slavery. That's not Black history. That's American history. Why do we not teach that as white history? Right? Like, it's not it's about going from like what most marginalized communities are talking about. If as a Black person, I can say and speak for everybody, right?
Right.
What the real thing is about. It's about going from being object to being subject, right? In when we talk about history in America, what we generally do is make white history the subject and everybody else is the object in that. Does that make sense? You
Yeah, it makes a
understand?
lot of sense. Yeah.
And what people are saying is, I'm not an object, I'm a subject. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an object. I am part of this. I am not just what you want or need me to be to justify your narrative. I'm not a bit player in your movie. I'm the
Yeah.
star of my movie.
Let me if I'm hearing it correctly, and I think it's history would be taught is the oh, this is what happened to the Black people. They were slaves, as opposed to white people enslaved Black people. They did this to
Or,
them.
or
Or
this,
as Black
or
people, this is what happened to us, as opposed to this is, just something that happened.
right, or just the basic idea, whether or not one person did something or another person did something, just the basic understanding that two groups of human beings were involved in something
Interacted, yeah, in a
interactively. It
power
was there
disparity.
will whether you talk about that from that perspective or not, just the fact that there are two groups of humans who
Hmm.
are interacting with each other in a way, whether it be positive or negative, and both people's side of the story is valid, right? Like,
Hmm.
if you and I go see a movie from what marginalized communities are arguing, because I'm a spokesperson. If you, me, a white woman and a Black woman, because those are the only marginalized communities that count.
Right.
I'm kidding. God, I hate fucking liberals. I hate you fuckers. Like, you make everything suck because
Well,
I'm on your side, but I hate the fact that I can't actually just say something that's kind of amusing.
right.
But anyway,
And by the way,
in
liberals,
poor
that
taste or
you're the
not.
reason fucking Virginia lost. I hope you
Right,
understand that.
right, right, right. Like, fuck. Anyway, what they're arguing is that if a whole group of people, if we all go see a movie and it's a mixed bag of people, when we come out, the only review that actually matters is yours. That's the argument, right? Is that, like, I can have my impression of the movie, but unless I agree with you, the white man, my opinion is wrong. Like, yours is the authority on whether or not the movie is a good movie, or the perspective that the movie should be seen through, or how it should be interpreted. And that somehow, and what people are saying is that my experience in this country is different from your experience, but that doesn't make it any less valid. And I would argue that that's true. I would argue that what racism has done in this country has actually, the ways in which white people suffer is you take a whole bunch of people who are not at all alike and put them into a place and say that they are all the same thing, right? And what that does is that denies everybody. And this is, we'll get to your history question. Why should we teach history, right? Because why we should teach history is because forgetting makes us stupid. and makes us weak.
Except my
That's
point
why.
was we teach it now and we're still stupid and
But we
weak.
don't. We don't teach history. We
Oh, we
teach
don't teach it the way
propaganda.
you're talking about. Correct. Yeah, you're
That's what I
right.
mean. Like we don't
Yeah.
teach history, we teach propaganda. And that's what people are arguing is that like when you hear something, like when you say something like this, right? The Lone Ranger was based on a black person. People go, what? That's ridiculous. There's no black cowboys. No, that's actually not true. A significant number of cowboys were black people. But it's literally when I say that, people's immediate response is that's insane
Well,
because
there is a
people don't
documentary
stop to
about black
realize.
cowboys. It was called Blazing Saddles, but I digress.
Ah! You're an asshole. That's funny. Holy shit, that's hilarious.
I just I was trying to pull his name, the character's name, out of my ass, and I just couldn't. You know what you did? Since I'm doing movie references, since that's all I do is movie references. A minute ago, when you said that you take white people and put them in one box and say they're all the same, the monolith is white, even though everybody has different experiences. I did think of the best movie ever made, which of course is Smokey and the Bandit, which really progressive for its time. I don't know if you remember when he picks up Sally Field. They talk Richard Petty versus Steven Sondheim, like Broadway versus NASCAR. And he just sort of says, well, I guess how smart you are depends on what part of the country you're from, or something like that. Like, yeah, like what you know depends on. And it's like, yeah, white people may set the tone, but we're not a monolith either. We have the idea we are, with the propaganda says we are.
But here's the problem, right? I won't use any people in particular, but let's say a downtrodden group of white-looking people, European-looking people, come to this country at a time where they're
just say the Irish.
treated like, because it's not, well, honestly, because it's not just them, right?
Yeah.
But right,
it happens several times.
Right. It's like, and what happens?
The Irish, the Italians, the Jews.
Right, like people will come to this country and they're being shit on where they're from. And they come here, and if they can just give up their last name, right, change their last names, lose their accents, not teach their children the mother tongue, not teach their own history to their children, and all this other stuff, right? Then somehow they can become white and therefore not be the quote unquote scummy trash from where they come from, right?
Yeah.
Now,
this goes completely sideways, and I apologize, but made me think of something I read that Chappelle hinted at. I don't know that he said it explicitly, I've already forgotten, but that gay LGBTQ rights have expanded by leaps and bounds because, everybody has a gay family member, and or you can't tell by looking, whereas a black person, you see, oh, that's black. I can see the difference right there. But in your own family, it's only when they tell you, like, oh, by the way, I'm different. Holy shit. Well, I've known you this whole time. And all right. So that's why acceptance that, yeah. When you said people give up their last name, that was the first thing I thought of was the race, just because we have eyeballs, and that is what fuels racism, and just seeing.
Yeah.
Seeing fuel.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. Something's turning on in the background. So I'll let you talk while I mute so I don't have background noise.
I can't hear a thing. I mean, but I feel like, I think that if you are in a position where you're giving up all these things, right? You're giving up your culture, right? And you're not giving it up, you're trading it. You're trading your culture for a holiday. You get a holiday, you get to party up and be this thing, right? But there's no actual teaching of actual European history and from when those people got to this country, right? Like the same thing happened to them that happened to everybody else. In order for assimilation to happen, their history and culture had to be erased because they had to choose to be white over this other thing, right? But that would somehow suggest that genetically, epigenetically, culturally, and every other way that they are somehow, that stuff doesn't continue, right? Like if we're going to argue that the children of Black criminals are likely to be criminal, right? We're going to argue that these things are inherited. Let's say it's not that. Let's say it's a mental illness, right? It doesn't have to be something racist, something like, mental illness is inherited. There are certain cultural things. There are certain things, right? And so if you have Southern white people who might have all come, people whose families have been deeply there for years, they come from a certain part of Europe, generally speaking. The people in California who maybe started there and not there, where did those people come from? And then to put them all together and act like they're all exactly the same and all that stuff, it's actually, it's irresponsible, right? But we've chosen.
Well, I mean, there is something to be said for it, because what you just said, like where I hail from, Wisconsin, is known as being heavily German slash Scandinavian. So, I mean,
well, all right. I guess
it's not monolithic, but it's kissing cousins.
My point is this: do you think? All right, I'm going to make an assumption here. This is not a statement of fact. This is an assumption. My guess is if you look at Irish communities, Italian communities, German communities, you will find places where those things, the kind of habitualized problems, right? Whatever habitualized problems those communities, like any of the communities that had to assimilate to WASP, right? They weren't born, they weren't here, right? They came over and they were the immigrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
My guess is you can trace systemic problems that exist in those communities back to things that happened way back then, right? Because, and I
hear
can
where you're
say
coming
that,
from.
right? Like, and I don't, that's why I don't want to say any name groups. I don't want to call people out because I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? But like,
It doesn't stop any politician.
Right, no, but these are assumptions that I'm making based on my own experience, which means like let's say like the Irish in drinking, right? Like it's cliche, but let's just say, right? Where does that come from? Does the Irish community have a bigger problem per capita than other groups of white people with drinking? And if that is true, why? And is it not important, if that is to be cured, to figure out how and why they got there? And does that not mean we need to teach their history?
Did it start here though, or did it get important with the Jameson and all the Scotch whiskeys they made?
Let's say it got imported. Does that mean it's okay? Right? Is it a problem? Right? Like when we talk about stuff like Catholic guilt, right? Is that a real thing? Is that cultural? Is that a problem? And how is that different from other people's guilt? Like, does it actually need its own methodology to be fixed? Or does just basic general catch-all guilt therapy cure Catholic guilt? Right? Or Irish Catholic guilt, which is different from Italian Catholic guilt.
Right.
Does any kind of guilt therapy work? Or do we need one tailored to these people? Like, do they need a special kind of therapy to deal with their particular version of it?
And well, the common thread seems to be religion, which seems to be a problem in general.
Right, but again, let's take it out of the controversial, right, and make it something other than that. Like, and the question becomes: do all groups of people, like, I would argue, not argue, posit. I would posit that Black people en masse need a different kind of therapy than white people en masse because of the different ways in which we have been enculturated in this country, right? Like when we look at the same movie, we don't see the same thing, right?
Right.
Even though we're watching the same movie, you know? We see the same thing, but we interpret it differently. And we may interpret 99.9% the same way. So there's a lot of common ground, obviously, because human stories are human stories, in which case a catch all will work, right? Like Joseph Campbell, the mythology thing. Why does every culture have some kind of Cinderella story and some kind of this story and some kind of that story? And like, why is that? It's like, well, because the stories can be the same, but that doesn't mean that the interpretation is always the same. Because sometimes when we look at the stories, we identify with different characters, right? Like if you watch Star Wars, do you identify with Luke more or do you identify with Han Solo more? And if you identify with Han Solo more, then you're going to have a different experience when you watch that because you're going to see it through the lens of a guy who's kind of rebellious and this and that and the other thing versus a guy, right? And some of that stuff is cultural.
Well, let's
Like,
take it
and some of
even.
it just is personal. I don't know. Like it's deep shit, I suppose.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
just a bigger picture on Star Wars, because the first thing I always think of is um you know Afghani terrorists, as we call them. It's been shown that they love Star Wars because they see themselves as the uh, rebel alliance fighting
right?
the evil empire, which is America. Like they see it as a completely different metaphor than we see it in
Are
America.
they wrong? But are they wrong?
From their point of view, no.
Right. But then are we wrong when we're the scrappy little country that could? Are we wrong when we see ourselves that way? Is that
Yeah.
wrong too? It's like, of course not. Because that's what I mean, right? Like both people, like, and it depends, right? What if you see yourself like, I don't know. It's like, it's funny because personally, I feel like in my life, if we make this an individual thing, I have a lot of questions about my childhood that can no longer be answered. And I feel like some of those, the knowledge of some of that, my past, a clarification of some things, and an illumination and an in depth study of different periods of my life would help me to better deconstruct the problems that I have and get myself on the road to being self-actualized, if we use therapy terms, right? Like that kind of stuff, right? Like if I want to become a self-actualized person, I believe that unraveling some of the mental fuckery in my head is important. And I believe that some of that stuff, some of the ways in which I interpret things is based on shit I learned as a kid. As a nation, I think that what marginalized communities are arguing is that, yes, we understand these things, but your interpretation and presentation of me and people like me is inaccurate. And I'd like to have some say in that.
Okay.
I'd like to have some say in the way in which I am portrayed in the history books. I don't think it's fair that only one group of people gets to decide the point of view from which history is told, you know?
So this brings us full circle to where I started with why do
Mhm.
we teach
Yes.
history? And
Mhm.
to make it personal, and this is something you and I have discussed, that it's just the difference of two people, you and I, two people, two
Mhm.
friends, where you say you would like to understand certain elements of your childhood to get a clarification. And my point has always been, and maybe I deal with shit inappropriately or wrong, or I don't deal with it, but just a quick nutshell for anybody that may be tuning in for the very first time. Um, I moved 10 times in the first 10 years of my life. And in speaking to my parents, they both said the same thing. They were divorced at the time, and I was speaking to them about my life. And they both said, independent of one another, and they still don't speak to one another. They said, in seventh grade, you changed. You used to be this happy-go-lucky kid, but in seventh grade, a darkness overcame you. They think it was one move too many. And I remember sort of that what I had figured out is, anytime I make friends, I lose friends. So why bother making friends? I'm just going to move. It's best just to wall yourself off. I'm not sure. I guess, well, I was going to argue your point, but I guess I'm arguing for your point, because my idea is instead of continually looking to the past, is like, once you figure something, you just keep moving forward. It's like that happened. It's what we talked about on this once with closure. So many people need closure. They talk about with relationships or an old boss, just in general, where to me, closure is the idea it happened, deal with it, move forward. Okay, accept that it happened. You might never get to tell your boss to fuck off. You might never get revenge on that person that from as little as cheated on you and dumped you to cut you off in a parking lot or stole the parking stall you wanted. If you live every day looking for how do I figure out what happened or why, as opposed to, okay, that happened, dealing on with it, moving forward. And I think that as a country, we and maybe it's because I'm didn't grow up from a marginalized community. It's we spend so much time looking backward saying, but this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. It's like, okay, but what are we doing for tomorrow? Yeah, we get it. That happened. It sucks. Sorry.
Well,
We're dealing with the now and tomorrow as opposed to
but
yesterday.
I think that, well, I'll say a couple things, right? I think that, I talked to a musician friend of mine, and he said, you can take 18 months to figure something out on a gig, or you can practice for 4 weeks and work it out. You know what I mean? Like if you have a musical problem, you can just keep forcing it on a gig, and it'll take you about a year and a half to work it out of your playing, or you can just practice and it'll be done in 4 weeks. The time differential is massive, right? I think the same is true with therapy. I think if you try to figure out yourself, it will take you a very long time to figure it out.
Oh, I'm not opposed to therapy. I'm just talking
Right.
about
But
because
what I mean is like you're talking about this from the perspective of a person who has gone through things and actually been able to get some therapeutic help. And that's different than people who didn't ever do that.
ooh,
Do you
can
know
I
what I
put words in
mean?
your mouth? Can I put words in your mouth?
Yes.
Are you
Sure.
saying that teaching proper history is like therapy for America?
Uh, no,
I
but
wouldn't be opposed
sure.
to that. It's not a bad.
No, but well, here's the point that people are trying to make, right? And this will tie into some of the larger stuff that we're talking about. If you and I meet and I and we can use the movie analogy, right? We're gonna see the movie two different ways, right? But if what we do is spend time arguing about whether or not my perception is right versus your perception, which neither one of us is actually right because everything is seen through your filter, my filter, whatever, we're not actually having an actual communication because you're not you and I'm not me, right? You are a projection you are whatever I'm dragging up from my past or knowledge base and projecting all over you rather than you being you, right? At a certain level. And I'm not me, I'm whatever you perceive and all that stuff, right? When we're arguing about the movie, right? But even if we're laughing and joking about the movie and having a great time, and we're not arguing about it. We're talking about it from two different points of views, and we're being happy. But what we're still doing is relating it to all these things that happened previously through our interpretation. But there's another way that we could relate in which I work hard not to see you through the lens of my past, right? You don't represent every single white man I've ever met who is good or bad or this or that. You don't even necessarily represent my dickhead roommate who would wake me up in the summer and make me go to class. You know what I mean? And like that, you don't represent that guy either. Or the guy that was really cool and did this. Like, if I can get to a place where you're just you, right? Who you are today, and I let you tell me who you are, and I interact with that person, that is very different than me assuming something or filtering you through somebody you remind me of from my past. Does that make sense? It's convoluted.
Not only does it make sense, that's fucking insightful.
Right. But
well done.
And I think that, but it's not my words. I read a lot of books. I'm really fucked up, and I read a lot of books.
So do I. I just don't remember any of them. Well, I mean, I remember you've heard me say it on here a million times. Like, okay, I don't remember where I read this, but then I'll barf up something that sounded smart.
But I wonder, and I think that this, again, if we tie it back to the race thing and all this other stuff in history and stuff, what I believe marginalized people are arguing is that if you continue to see us through this lens where Black history starts at slavery, right? And there has literally been an erasure of African American contributions. Didn't we say from the inception of this country, like it's just been complete, like the Lone Ranger being a white guy, like just little simple shit like that is baked into, like John Wayne is the epitome of a man, and when arguably he was largely not him per se, but the Lone Ranger, that cowboy type character, is largely modeled after Black folks, but nobody knows that. And when you say it, it sounds insane. Like it literally sounds like I'm talking crazy talk. It's like if you said something like, well, you do know that Jesus couldn't have looked like that. I'm not saying he's Black, because he's not Black, like what we call Black. That's not what Jesus would be. But like, he surely didn't look like an Eastern European. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and all the jokes about interesting that his disciple, he found people named Peter and Paul and in the Middle East, right?
Right. And it's like,
as opposed to Ahmed and Farouche.
Right,
and,
but like we say these things, and everybody is fundamentally aware of the fact that Jesus could not have looked like that, right? We're all aware of it, like from a logical perspective, but from a very other perspective,
emotional perspective.
Everybody knows what Jesus looks like. He looks like the guy that we see the pictures of. That's what he looks like. We all know that. That's what Jesus looks like. We all know that's not true, but yet we all know that's true, right? See how that works? Like it's completely absurd, and that's what racism is.
Well,
that's
it's what
people are arguing. Is like, you know, these things are true, but yet we don't accept them to be true, right? Because like if you started, if somebody decided they were going to change what Jesus looked like and just change his hair color, change his eye color to brown, and change his hair color to Black, you don't think that there would be an uproar in the white community, even though everybody knows that's what he actually looks like? Something like that. They would be like, well, why change it? It's not hurting anybody. Why change it? But because it's inaccurate. But so what? That's what the critical race theorists are arguing. It's like, well, what you're saying is you want to teach about the little Black girl that had to walk through the screaming hordes of white people to go to class without saying that those white people are your grandparents. Right? Right? Like that's what they want to do. They want to say that you can teach this, but you cannot give us accountability for it because it's in the past. even though the reason why we have half the problems we have is because of the fact that we're not teaching. I don't want to say we're not teaching white people, but we're not teaching. All right, let me make it. Let me take it out of race for a second. I feel like when women talk about sexism, I understand that it's true. It also hurts me because there's things in my life that I know I've done from a patriarchal, from that man position, right? I know that I've done that. I don't like it. So it really bothers me when people talk about sexism or some guy got some girl drunk and had sex with her. You know what I mean? Like there's a part of me that's like, I don't like when we talk about this stuff because I know guys who do that, right? I don't drink, so that's not my thing, you know? But like, see how I saved myself there?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like I know guys who've gone to bars and have done that and had sex with women, and I know many women who've done that and been perfectly fine with it. And I know some women are like, oh man, I got really drunk and woke up with some guy, and I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't drunk. Right? Like I know all these different sides, and it bothers me. But here's what, and I can't change what I've done that would be seen through from that lens that I now understand. I can say, wow, shit, that was fucked up. What I or this person or whatever did, that's kind of fucked up, right? Like that's not okay. But what, like, as much as I don't like that feeling, what I can do is in my life, whether or not I agree with everything that the feminists are saying, what I can do is fight for what I know, quote unquote, know to be right. All right. That's what I can do. And what I would say when it comes to white people, what I hear a lot is, I know racism exists, but I know it exists, but I know, but, and the but is always about why do you have to keep doing this and this and this? It's like, okay, well, how about stop saying that it exists and doing nothing about it? Like, how about stop letting it be okay that your racist friend is saying racist shit? Like, don't let that be okay. When you're at the table and your racist uncle says something, say no, that's not okay, and be willing to. You know what I mean?
I do, but to be fair, that's what C. Thomas Howell did at the end of Soul Man, and it's still called a racist, horrible movie.
Exactly. But I mean, like,
well, here, let me interrupt because I've had something brewing in my head, and I'm not sure if I have anything to say because usually I have, oh, this is a good idea, and then when I try and get it out here, it's just garbage. Mm-hmm. Thinking of emotion versus, I suppose, logic, and what I'm hearing you say is that everybody seems to hold on to certain things. Christians want to hold on to the idea of the white Jesus, and marginalized community, and you didn't say this is where my head goes, want to hold on the idea of, hey, this past, what happened to us is important. And I'm not trying to dismiss it, even though that's the way it's coming out of my mouth. Whereas instead of the but you just talked about, I think my point of view, the way I am as a person, is less emotional and more, I want to say logical. Who knows if I'm being logical? I could be being irrational. I don't know. It's okay. Racism exists. No, but racism exists. Let's do something moving forward. What can we do in the now moving forward? Do you want a blanket apology for the past? Great. Sorry. No, but that's what I'm saying is like, what happens moving forward? What do we do as opposed to always?
Well, I mean, I think this is what quote unquote critical race theory, what they're calling critical race theory, is trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like, if what you're saying is like, yes, what can we do? Well, here's what you can do. We can start with actual American history.
Which I said I was not opposed to a few weeks ago, and I'm not. And I said earlier today that I am opposed to it. So let's put it in college. Let's go back to where I started, which is, all right, if you're going to have these crybaby parents voting the worst of the worst people into office, it's only going to make problems worse, because the more you vote shit fucks into office, the less progress is made. So I think Cory Booker did the best thing ever. Did you see his video that went viral months ago?
Mm-mm.
The ex-football coach, some cunt in Alabama, he beat Doug Jones, and so Alabama, you can tell, right? Doug Jones, Democrat, narrowly beat a pedophile for office in a runoff election. Lasted 2 years, and then Alabama said, "Nope, that's enough of that. We want a football coach." Hee-haw! And so this fucktard gets up, and this is when defund the police was going big. He goes, he said, we need to have a vote right now that says we are not going to defund the police, because he thought he was being smart. And Cory Booker jumped on it. It was the best thing I'd ever seen, where he said, "Yes, thank you. I want to thank my esteemed colleague from Alabama. If I could hug and kiss you, I would. Let's vote right now so that all 50 Democrats can vote against defunding the police, so you can stop turning this into a fucking talking point, a stupid issue that you assholes use to scare white people." I think he used different words. Those are the words I would have used. But it was beautiful. And I think that's what needs to be done with critical race theory, which is, we don't need to be great. We're not teaching it. It's going to be a college course. Your fucking 6-year-old kid does not have to learn all, because this is a point I thought earlier when I said that I didn't learn history. Speaking of football coaches, my history teacher in high school, one of them was the football coach, because they needed to find something for him to do. And I remember full on taking a history quiz, which was, what were the 3 causes of World War I or II? And you just had to the assassination of Ferdinand, Hitler, depending on the war. It was not nuanced. It was not intelligent. It was bullet point learning. And so I'm not saying they taught, I don't remember history. I don't remember what I learned about the conquering of the natives or the settling of the plains.
But here's what people would argue. As much as you didn't learn that, you did learn. What you did learn is that, what you learned is American propaganda.
Probably. Yeah.
That has seeped into the way that you see other people, other communities, other things. That's the argument. The argument is that what you have learned isn't actually history. It's propaganda that has shaped the way that not only this country has developed, but the way this country thinks. And what we're trying to say is, maybe there's a better way for us to be thinking about things.
And I don't disagree with that at all.
And the argument is that not even about teaching here's what I think. I think not even fuck slavery and all that other stuff, but how about we just start talking about the positive contributions of, let's start comparing the revolutionary writings of white freedom fighters, black freedom fighters, women freedom fighters from all over the world, and see how the commonality of those things are. Why are we not tapping, talk about the great achievements? I feel like this country misses out on the great achievements of people of color, of women, of all kinds of marginalized groups in that we really suffer from. So even if it wasn't the crackers enslaved the niggers and beat the bitches, it's okay, even if we didn't do that and we just taught the positive things that other people have contributed to this nation, that would change things. But that would then, people would lose that inherent advantage.
Well, I like what you're saying, because it goes exactly to what you said about you personally and feminism and sexism in your history, because I get the sense, and I just trying to step back and overview, that a lot of, and maybe it's Republican messaging, because I know the guy in the camera, I don't like critical race theory, because like you said, it's a knee-jerk reaction to guilt or that feeling, and people don't like that. So I like what you're saying, because if we just make history all. So fuck it. Right now we teach America rah rah white propaganda. Let's just teach all propaganda. Let's just make it. Hey,
Right,
black people were
right.
great. Asian people
I
were great. They
mean,
sure built those
right.
railroads, didn't they? You
I
know,
mean,
not
I did ask.
not by
Jesus.
choice, but still, they did a great
But
job.
no, but you know what I mean? Like really, again, I can't talk about people without being canceled. You fucking liberals. God
I
damn
just
it.
did it. I'm going to get canceled for
But
that
like,
the railroad comment.
but you probably are. I stepped away from that one. That's a landmine. Jesus, man, what are you doing? See, now as a racist, now as a person who says we need to fight against racism, that kind of joke is inappropriate, Nathan. I need to stop you in your tracks and tell you that that is inappropriate. Do you understand me? All right, now my job is done.
Are you saying the American railway system sucks? I mean, well, I guess it kind of does
Oh my
now, but at its
God.
time,
Oh fuck. Could you fucking imagine? These fucking liberals. Here's what would happen with the stupid liberal people is you'd say the railroad system sucks, and they'd say, are you making fun of Asians?
exactly. They can turn anything into their little whiny complaint department. And here's the worst thing about it. Here's the absolute worst thing about it. Connor Lamb is a representative in Pennsylvania who flipped a Trump district, and he has won, I think, 3 elections. And it's not because he's a Kirsten Sinema who just is an obstructionist and a complete asshole. He listens to people and he talks with them and reasons with them and tries to walk a moderate road, saying, look, this Trumpism is insane. You have to understand that. But so is AOC. And when he says that, the fucking AOC people lose their fucking minds like, no, we need to be more progressive. And they don't see the whining and the screaming about everything as the main reason they just lost Virginia, because people get tired of whining and screaming and being shouted at. When was the last time anyone shouted at you and you said, oh, you're right, I am the worst person in the world, I'm going to do better?
But here's the thing, and this is I think something that I, when I say, like, you know, all this bullshit we're dealing with is an outgrowth of white supremacy, right? I say that often, and it's like you accuse me of being a hammer and everything being a nail. And you're probably not wrong about that. So I'll that it checks that. You can check that box sometimes, you know.
And I won't, but I don't ever argue back like,
but,
no, wait a second, as a white person, because I can take my lumps.
But here's what I think. I think that when you have a system in this country that is completely based on just absurdity, right? Like just this absurd notion, and then and we're talking about educated liberals here, right? You educate a bunch of people on that ridiculous history thoroughly because you went to crappy public school. That's why you don't know history, because you went to crappy public school, because you're not actually supposed to know. You're supposed to be just a worker bee. So you shut the fuck up. You don't actually get an education. You get what we want you to know so you can think that we want you. You can show up at work and then punch out and go the fuck home and keep your mouth shut. That's what
so you can get a paycheck and spend and grow the economy with the shit you don't need.
Yes, you're still a slave. You just drive home to your slave shack in your nice car, right?
But and your flat screen TV that's really big, and then you go click, 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 click. I have power. Look at all the power. I have all these channels to choose from. I am a god.
Right. And that's the point of that. But like educated folks who actually got an education, right? They learned all this American history, and they're the children of hippies. And they went, oh, well, we just make up our own crazy rules and enforce them with force. That is historically what has worked in this country is force. You can force a whole bunch of people. If you control the history books and you control the narrative and you control the television and you control the radio, you control what everybody thinks, and you'll just you'll brainwash them in the way you want them to be brainwashed. That's all.
Fuck, that's one of the points I wanted to make early on when I said, why do we teach history? I had that thought last night when I'm like, this is what I want to talk about tomorrow. And that was one of the thoughts I had, which was history is written by the victors. So if history is always inaccurate, why the fuck do we teach it? Because what you and I are talking about is this sea change of trying to change everything, the way history is
Right.
like, and so I at this point I am willing to say I have no faith in humanity. Fuck it, throw my hands up and say math and science moving forward, and then kids can get to college and go, holy shit, I never knew that about American history. Nobody fucking did,
All
but
right.
you're going to learn it now.
Here's what I would say, and here's where the only problem comes in, is I think that reading literature teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to put your words together. Like
Right,
when I
so
said something, and
math
you're
science
like,
and throw in some English.
right, but if you're throwing in literature, then what about the stuff that takes place in a historical context, right? Like if you're reading Les Mis and you don't know what was going on there, you don't understand. If you read Animal Farm and you don't understand what he's talking about, you still get the gist of the story, but you don't understand that he was like, zing, gotcha, zing. Like
Yeah,
you miss all the inside shit because he was like swinging hard, you know what I mean? But if you don't know what he's swinging at,
one of those
then
rare
you
books that lives
know what
up
I
to the
mean?
hype.
Right, but I read Animal Farm and didn't understand it contextually and still got everything I was supposed to get out of it. Do you know what I mean? But there's a deeper understanding. Again,
Okay, so building on what you're saying, so it's laying the foundation. You read
absolutely.
Animal Farm, and then you get to college, and you take another course that says,
Oh,
okay,
somebody
here's what
contextualizes it
Animal
for
Farm
you.
really, yeah, yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Why the fuck
Wouldn't
don't we run
that
this
be
country? You and I, we
interesting?
sit down, we have conversations like this, and then we
I know
implement
we
policy.
figure things out, and it takes us about an hour or so to figure out all the problems in the world. Why do they not elect us?
I don't know. Maybe because we don't run. You know.
Yeah, maybe we should start
Well,
running.
speaking of
Who
about an hour,
knows?
I think we're a little over, which means as
Oh,
I
it's fine.
started this thing, Instagram has cut us off a while ago. So let's just do this.
Assholes.
AntarGoodwin.com, KatieHenryMusic.com,
Absolutely.
January 21st, on my way. Tell everybody
Nice.
what the last two things I just said, on my way, and January 21st. What does that mean to the general public?
Well, here's what I will say. I will say many things. Ah, Katie Henry
You're going to
Band.
correct me
We
and say it's
are
January 20th. That's one thing. Which did I get it right?
no, no, you got it right.
Ah,
That's the CD release party is at the Stanhope House in Stanhope, New Jersey. And it is the 21st of January. The new record comes out. The new video comes out, I believe, December 4th. But the prelim up to the video comes out towards the middle to end of November, right around your birthday, probably, sir.
I'll be in
We'll be
Facebook jail
making
for my birthday. So anybody wishing me a happy birthday
nice.
on in Facebook in mid-November, thank you in advance, but I won't see it.
You're hilarious. Um, and so there's
Did I tell
that.
you
So
what I did to
yeah,
get in Facebook jail?
no, but I'm sure it was stupid.
Oh, it was absurd. A buddy of mine said he didn't like the movie Gladiator, so I wrote, "You
Oh,
don't
I
like the
did see
movie?
that.
Yeah, burn him at the
Ah,
stake." And they're like, "I said that you've incited violence." Like, really? That's inciting? Oh God! Yeah. Maybe the January 6th insurrection that was allowed to be planned on Facebook was inciting violence. Did you ever think of that? You fucking cunts over at Facebook. Anyway, Katie Henry
oh
Band is
man.
the band that when I said
Yeah.
katiehenrymusic.com, that is the band that you, Antar Goodwin,
Yes.
antargoodwin.com, are the musical director for. And on my way,
Absolutely.
everything we've been talking about is the latest album. And that's
Indeed.
backtracking everything you said. So what did you say was happening at the end of the month? The pre-video or?
The what we're gonna be, I think, releasing a couple like a 10-second clip of the video to lead up to it for the single release and all that stuff. So there's like a whole plan in process here, a whole plan in motion. It's exciting,
Neat.
So yeah, there'll be some good stuff. I'm excited. What about you, Sarah? How's the book?
No new reviews to speak of right now. I did get my 49th 5-star review on Amazon. So as I
Mm-hmm.
believe I said last week it was 48. So I am one away from 50. I don't know why that benchmark seems important. So if you are out there and you have read the book, please give it a nice review if you liked it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
ask anybody to lie. I just, as I said last week, ask you to remain silent if you didn't like it.
Keep your mouth shut.
But let's we had hinted at things recently, and let's say this. As of today, you are going to the post office for me because you are a kind person I recorded an audio version of the book, not once, but 1.5 times. I recorded it. I sent it to you. I had it test listened to, made a couple changes, decided to re-record a half dozen chapters, re-edited the entire thing. You have made it sound pretty. You're going to send it back to me today. And here's my favorite part, and this is really going to get me canceled because I made this joke to you on the side, and I'll make it publicly. The people that test listen to my audiobook, I thank you. You did a great job. I could not have done this without you. That said, I'm going to have it test listened to one more time by a blind friend of mine who's going to Matt Murdock the shit out of it, because since he can't see, he's got better ears than you. He's going to use his hearing superpowers to give my audiobook a test. And if it comes through clean, by the end of the month, when I get out of Facebook jail, I will have an audio version of the book. So anybody out there making excuses saying, I can't read, I fall asleep. Hey, you're going to be able to pop on headphones, pop in earbuds, go for a walk, put it through your Bluetooth in your car when you're driving, commute. There will be an audio version of We Are 100 coming soon.
Indeed. It's exciting.
Oh, and when I say put something in the mail, it's because it's all on an external hard drive. I suppose we should explain that. Like, they're going to put an audiobook in the mail. Yeah, it's on an external hard drive.
I mean, he set it into a box and
held
it and mailed it to me.
And then I'll open it up and all these words will come out. And then, you know what I've been doing on stage recently is when I promote the book, I have been talking about it, and then I say, well, let me do a quick reading for you. Anyway, people like that for some reason. I say, let me do a quick read of my book. You know how you always talk about never looking in the camera when we talk? I don't, because every time I look down, I see my hair and I figure I should do something with it. So that's why I never look at the camera when we talk. All right, Nathan.
I actually disabled myself, so I can't even see myself.
Oh, that's a good move. NathanTimmel.com is where you can find me. Thanks for tuning in. As we haven't said in the past, but we're going to start saying more now. Smash that share button. Spread the word of this.
Mash that button, y'all.
Yeah. Subscribe and save.
That's right.
I don't know what you're saving, but subscribe and save.
Go to our Patreon and give us money.
I wish I was as nakedly ambitious as to have one of those. I feel we should offer product. That's why, I sell a book, so that you don't have to give us money. You can give us money through.
How about we have t-shirts? Let's take a vote for the 6 of you guys who watch this. Would you wear artificially intelligent t-shirts if they were kind of cool looking? Or if we took a famous Nathanism, something that we all say a lot on this show, and
Asians are great at railroads.
Yes. What we're gonna have is,
to be fair, Chinese.
Right. Yes. Right. We're gonna lump them all in.
No, I'm saying it was the Chinese. I was lumping them before. That was racist of me to say that all Asians, when in fact it was Chinese immigrants that built our railroads. Thank you, Chinese immigrants. I need to hit the stop button on this recording because I'm just digging a deeper hole. All right. Do you want a t-shirt from us? Yes or no?
Would you rock a t-shirt if we had one? And then we'll talk about Patreon. Kidding. Delete all of this.
Nope.